The Skagit is an intimidating river. It's large. We need to make it smaller, look for seams, look for gravel bars, look for riffles. Because where there's riffles, there's usually rocks, and where there's rocks, there's usually steelhead and other fish. So if you fish on a small river, I mean, think about what you fish on a smaller river. And then when you're on the big river and you look for that same type of hole or run you fish on your smaller river, you'll see it in this big river, but you have to look for it. You have to look for structure that makes that seam, that makes the fish want to hold there for maybe a day or maybe even 20 minutes, and you just happen to be there when he's holding. So you need to look for things like that. As a fly guy, you know, you can't fish a lot of the big deep seams unless you're doing a nymphing type system, which I don't do. I do fish. Have people fish out of the boat, but they don't use a bobber, or I should say a strike indicator, very much. We'll just fish a heavy fly and sink it down in there and see what happens. Sometimes we get lucky and pull out a nice bull trout. We haven't pulled a steelhead out yet, but you never know. They do run into deep slots, but like I say, as a fly guy, your fly would go in that slot and be out. But when you're in a drift boat, you can keep it in there, seem like you were trout fishing. On the Skagit, these runs are very long, and you can't own the bar the whole day, so you got to be able to move a few steps and let the fly just swing over to the bank as far as you can get it without hanging up. And also, when I strip in with a purpose. I just don't strip the line in. I strip in expecting a bull trout to whack it. They like swim in the shallows a lot of times. So I just do not strip like a madman unless you have to, you know, so you don't hang up. That's what I mean by stripping with a purpose. You're anticipating a strike, like streamer fishing for trout, you know, out of a boat. You're casting and stripping, trying to get them aggravated enough to bite it or chase it down. I've never had a steelhead hit me on the strip, but there's always that chance. But the bull trout, definitely. Sometimes I will strip real short strips. Sometimes I'll strip and then just lift the tip of the rod and drop it. Strip a couple, lift it, strip. And it also, what that does is it gets your head up out of the water, so when you make your spade cast, your line's already up a little bit. Especially with sink tips, you know, it wants to put you down. Anyway, and that's basically what I do. I get my distance that I like to cast, and depending on the run, obviously. But like a run like this we're on, you could probably cast as far as you want to cast, but you really don't have to. Most of the fish I've caught off this run have been within 20 yards out, maybe, and even closer. And the bull trout even closer. They're like almost directly in line with you sometimes. I'm not an instructor, but what I think what people learn to do is to stay fluid with your cast. Try to keep tension all the way through your cast, almost. Depending, you know, if you're doing a snap tee, obviously it's a quick shot. But try to stay fluid with your casting. It's kind of like a single hand, you know, when you're throwing a dry fly, it's nice and fluid. You can accomplish that with a spey rod. You just stay fluid. That one one was a little close.
I
think we got Dad a little scared on that one.
I felt the water.
But
Tried to use my best poker face on that one.
Yeah, find your anchor point on both sides of you where you like your fly to land. And one thing that helped me was I'd watch where the fly landed. It's usually in about rod length away, and as the D loop's going back, your fly starts to move. And when your fly starts to move, go forward, because that means your D loop is pulling it back. Some of these patterns I like. They're just an articulated leech with the articulated hook in the back. A little bit of crystal, that works really well. Different colors, more natural. And then if you're a traditional guy, you could go like Spay, big old coachman. You could do something like that. We're talking steelhead mostly here right now. And then we got some brighter ones. This is big old intruder pattern with aqua fly design hooks and system. Here's another intruder pattern. A buddy of mine tied that up. I haven't tried it yet. But... So anything of that nature. So we're talking about structure in a river. If you look at this gravel bar, this continues out into the river as it goes. And as it goes, if you look up here at the snow line, to where I am, it drops. I mean, look at that's, you know, a good foot. So as you're going out, it does the same thing, but then it all of a sudden does this. It just makes a whoosh, because there's more current out there. And that's where the fish lay, in that little soft drop off. And the bull trout will lay there, and the steelhead mostly. The bull trout will come up over the top of that depending on the time of day. You come in here and look for little smolts or other type of things to eat. So that's what you want to look for, a very rocky bottom, very rocky. Bigger rocks than this even. But well, when you look at this one out here in the water, you can kind of see how it gradually goes out and then gets really nice and dark green right there. That's where it drops off into about 3 to 4 feet of water, and then as you go out further into the river, it's even deeper. But, so that I look for this type of water, and then I also look for riffles. We like to fish riffles where there's a nice seam, and your fly will swing through the riffle, and usually when it gets almost to the seam, sometimes the fish will grab, and then even after the seam they'll grab it. But a lot of the drifts on the Skagit are big bars like this. They're not all little drifts because of the size of the river, obviously. But don't be afraid to fish a long drift like this, you know, especially if you're walking in. As long as you have the right depth and you have the rocks and some kind of a heavy structure, you should be good. Another thing about the Skagit and water levels is, as you see this ice here, and then you look back at my boat, it's probably only been 3 or 4 days since the water was this high. It is a tailwater that people don't realize sometimes, and if you walk into an island, you better keep an eye on the river level, because it can come up very quickly, like a foot. Sometimes 6 inches a foot is more than you can handle, because the river picks up speed. And speaking from experience, one of our guys in our group, 2 of us made it back to the mainland, and he stayed on I'd come to find out, I didn't know he couldn't swim, so he didn't want to take a chance. But he had to chase down a jet sled and have them bring them back. So you can get stuck on an island on this gadget. You have to think about that sometimes. I think patience. If you're a steelheader in the winter, you need to have patience. You're not going to catch fish all the time. It's going to take you a while. You're going to have frozen feet and frozen fingers, and you're going to ask yourself, why in the hell would I do this? Well, when you hook that first steelhead, it could be a 5-pounder, it could be a 20-pounder. It's going to rock your world, and you just got to be patient. I mean, I fished for 3 years till up to last year before hooking winter steelhead, and you know, my buddies would say, how can you just keep coming out here? Well, that's what it takes in the winter. You know, you just got to be patient. Fish the runs that you think are good. You know, if you don't know, watch where people are fishing, especially fly guys, if you're a fly guy. And, you know, or hire a guide. I mean, that's the easiest way to learn a river if you're new to the area, and it'll save you a lot of time, or do a lot of reading. Get on Pacific Northwest Spade Fanatics. You can find a lot out there.
Shameless plug.